Hey YouTube, RicoKnows here. Gonna do my hidden gems video on Central Michigan just now. But before I do, I want to remind everybody, go to the homepage on YouTube, search RicoKnows, click on the playlist on the homepage, find the hidden gems playlist. This video is going to be a part of that playlist, okay? And go learn about every single player that you don't know about, right? All the hidden gems in college football. If you're not aware, I am pointing out one hidden gem on every single team in America. This is what I do. I evaluate rosters, and I give predictions for a living. Okay, this is not a hobby. This is what I do for a living. I have to know every player in America, every roster, to give accurate information to my gamblers. Shout out to the MVPs. If you want to know what that's about, get to Patreon, search RicoKnows. It'll change your life. Shout out to you, and shout out to my 3,500 members. We have more than that now. But anyways, so I'm looking at Central Michigan. They play in the MAC. If you didn't know, we watch a lot of MAC football. I provide analysis, picks, prop bets, all that stuff for every single weekday game, and then some select Saturday games. But weekday games, we do every single one of them because there's nothing else on that day, and I have all day to evaluate the teams. So I know the MAC action games really well. I know the MAC teams better than Vegas. This is why we win so much money. And I'm looking at the MAC, and I've already done an analysis on their offense. Okay, no big deal. And today I was doing an analysis on their defense and their defensive players. And the whole time I'm doing this, I'm trying to think to myself, like, what hidden gem am I going to talk about on this roster? Because I'm doing one hidden gem for every single team. So I'm looking at the offense, looking at the defense, and I say to myself, I think I'll just go with somebody. You know, I'm clicking around. I'm making sure I talk about the right player. And I was like, all right, I'm convinced I'm going to talk about Jaden Davis here, the transfer, coming over from Wayne State. And I'm like, yeah, that'll work. Shout out to the GLIAC, right? Honorable mention, GLIAC, Division II. It's like the SEC of Division II. I'm like, yeah, he's going to be a pretty good guy. Let me go get some film on him. But I keep looking around, and then I see this name right there. And what you guys got to understand is the linebackers at Central Michigan are pretty damn good. Okay, the linebackers are pretty good. Shout out to Cochran and Whiteside coming back from last year. Both very productive guys all over the field. Got a ton of tape with them. And then there's this kid named Fernando Sanchez. Now, I say kid, he's a grown man. This dude is 6'3", 240 or 230 or something like that, right? But Fernando Sanchez III. And I'm sitting there, and I want to find game tape on him. So I click on his profile. I check his stats, and I want to go see these games where he made tackles, he got a sack. I got to go see these games and see the effort. I got to go see what games he got in. So I'm going to go click on the game log, and I'm going to go look at these games, especially that Ball State one. He's got 5 tackles. I got to go see this. And as I'm looking, right before I go to turn on the film on him, I look up here, and I see his birthplace is Loganville, Georgia. And this might not mean anything to you guys, but in my profession, birthplace typically for high school players, they went to a local high school nearby. And I immediately see Loganville, and I go, oh, wait. Is this the, and if you were watching me on live TikTok, you saw me have this revelation, this epiphany. I said, is this the same Fernando Sanchez that played at Grayson? So I immediately go back over here, right click on his name, and sure enough, it says it right here, and it says Grayson, and I lose my shit. Excuse my language. I lose my shit. I'm like, yo, this is Fernando Sanchez. So I'm going to tell you guys a true story about Fernando Sanchez and playing at Grayson. I'm going to tell you guys a true story. This was 2021, 2020, 2021, somewhere around there. COVID was popping, had just set off, and they were saying you couldn't go to any high school games unless you were wearing a mask and all this stuff. So my father was living with me at the time. I was trying to take care of my pops. I let him move in with me. I was like, yo, you can retire. Just live off me, bro. I got you. So at the time, I was in the military. I was a first sergeant, active duty first sergeant. I've been in the Army about 20 years, and I was getting ready to retire soon. But in my spare time, I wanted to take my dad out to a high school football game. He's a former football coach. Obviously, I played for him. I played at other places, and I was a coach as well. So it's just one of those things where we like to go to games together. It's a common thing where we can watch a game together. And so I searched online, and I searched for the best running back in the state. I figured I'd take him to a game so he can see an NFL running back. Just let's go see one. Let's go see who's the best running back in the state. So we did a quick search, and I think what came up was Phil Maffa, the current starting running back at Clemson, okay? So Phil Maffa comes up, and I look, and I want to say they were 3-0 or 2-0, and they're getting ready to play Collins Hill. And Collins Hill was undefeated as well. So we got these two teams, both 2-0, and they're going to play each other very early in the season. It's about a 2-hour drive, 2.5-hour drive. I said, yo, Pops, I'm going to take you to this game tonight. It's early in the morning on a Friday. So he's chilling. He's doing what he does, right? He's on the sticks, as he says. He was playing his game. I think he plays Destiny. So we go to this game, and I drive out there, take him to the game, and we're there to see Phil Maffa. We're there to see Grayson. They tell me they're the number one team in the state according to the GPB rankings. And we're expecting to see really good football. Now, remember this. We are from Southern California. Now, I've been living all over the world, traveling and everything. I've seen high school football everywhere. Shout out to the DMV, Texas, Georgia. I've lived in Georgia for a number of years. I've lived here now 10 years. So I know all the players really well. I've already seen Trevor Lawrence in high school, saw Deshaun Watson in high school. I saw everybody. So for me, it's like, it's just another day. But it's early in the season, and I hadn't watched any of the games on GPB Sports, so I didn't really know who was on the team. I wasn't paying attention like that. I was just like, all right, we're going to go see these players. And we go to watch the game, and we're watching it, and we're just sitting. We sat on the visitor's side. It's at Grayson. We're sitting on the visitor's side, and we're sitting with Collins Hill, and we're just kind of watching. We're just like, all right, these teams are not wowing us. We're not seeing... when we watch the game and we see the field, we're like, at no point did we go, oh, that's an NFL guy. At no point did we think, oh, that's another NFL guy. Like, it never crossed our mind that we were looking at Division I athletes or anything. We're just watching the game. We're like, oh, they're kind of okay. Nobody's really going off. Eventually, Grayson wins the game, and Phil Maffa, starts having a bunch of rushing yards. Starts dominating the second and third quarter, if you will. I'm pulling up something right now to remind me of what I wanted to tell you guys about this, because it's crazy. It's a really neat story. So we jump in the car. We got a 2-hour drive home. After the game, we were kind of just like dumbfounded. We were like, we're kind of underwhelmed by both teams. Nobody really dominated anyone. It was just kind of competitive. I didn't see anybody far and away better than anyone else on the field. Let me just say that right now. I didn't see any singular player that was better than anybody. But we did say one thing when we got in the car. And shout out to my pops. He says, man, I think Collins Hill could have won that game. Man, all they need is that number 21, who was the quarterback. All they need is him and that number 12 at wide receiver. I bet I could win some games with those guys. And I said, yeah, they probably weren't coached right, man. They could be better. That's what we said, and we just kept driving. And we drove for 2 hours, and that was our only thought process in the game. We saw Phil Maffa, saw this. Guys, the players we were talking about on Collins Hill were Sam Horn, he's currently injured, but a quarterback at Missouri, and Travis Hunter was the wide receiver for Collins Hill. We saw two of the very best players in the entire country. And we're just like, oh, yeah, they're okay. And you know why they looked okay? Because they were going up against absolute monsters at Grayson. Every single player on the field was a next-level athlete, a Saturday player. Every player we saw was Division I. So it all looked equivalent. There was no shocker. There was nothing too great. You're looking at the receivers at Grayson at that time. And I wrote it down for you guys. Jamal Haynes was one of the wide receivers. He's the current running back at Georgia Tech right now. And the other one was Jaden Smith, who had to go to Eastern Kentucky, and now he's at UTEP after dominating last year in the FCS. We're talking about college athletes everywhere. Everywhere. Javion Allen was one of the best players on the field that day, and I think he's at North Alabama now as a running back. And he didn't play running back in that game. Those players were out of this world. Out of this world. And one of the guys on the field that really stuck out to us was Fernando Sanchez. I believe he wore number 14. I believe. And the reason he stuck out to us was because, and this is going to sound a little crazy, is because his last name is Sanchez. And we saw him on the field and said, yo, that ain't no Mexican. Where we're from, if your last name is Sanchez, you're Mexican. Where we're from in Southern California, we're from the Inland Empire, Southern Section. Shout out to us, right? So we got the best football in the world in CIF Southern Section. The best football in the entire country. But we're watching this game, and if we hear the name Rodriguez, Perez, Ramirez, Sanchez, the first name's Jose, Miguel. You know what I'm saying? Like what are we doing? So this guy's name is Fernando Sanchez III. Shout out to his pops. But we're looking at it like, man, that guy's a monster. He was so big. He was so mean at the point of contact. He stuck out to us on tape. And I remember going home. It's so funny. And we got home like 1 or 2 in the morning. And I did exactly what I'm doing now. I did more research on all the players we just saw. And I remember telling Paul, hey, yo, that guy was Travis Hunter, dude. They say he's a 5-star. I say, he looked pretty good, but I don't know about a 5-star good. We're doing this number here. It was his junior year. And Jake Garcia wasn't on the team yet. He was still at Valdosta. He hadn't even joined Grayson. By the way, if you don't know the history, Jake Garcia ends up transferring in and leads them to the state title. And they beat Collins Hill in the state title game in a rematch. Really boring. But Fernando Sanchez, I go search online and I want to check all these guys' profiles. And the minute I saw he was 3 stars, I said, man, that's crazy, bro. That dude's a monster. And then you keep watching the games all season long on NFHS or GPB Sports. You're watching all these games. I watch them all. And I just keep going, man, that guy's a beast. And they're telling me, well, who's recruiting him? And I wanted him to go to Troy. No, not Troy. Liberty. And instead, he went to the MAC. And he ended up at Central Michigan. I didn't know that. I didn't pay attention that hard. I just kind of let it go. And I forgot about the kid. An afterthought. What's he been doing? Getting bigger, stronger, faster. And now it's time for him to shine. So this is my hidden gem because I know how good he is. I know the product where he comes from. Shout out to Griffin Scroggins, by the way. That was another guard on the team. Went to Georgia. Now he's at App State, starting guard. He was also on that team. There's players on that team that I'm forgetting. Like Jojo, right? Taylor? Joseph Taylor Jr. I was thinking JoJo Stone. That was a couple years later. But the point I'm trying to make is that Grayson team was absolutely loaded. And I just had no clue. But Fernando Sanchez is one of those guys. Now, I have a picture of him down there looking like a little kid. He's an adult now. I mean, he's a grown man, 6'3", 235. But none of what I just told you is down here in these notes or anything. Not really. I saw this man in real life, and I thought he was great. I thought everybody was sleeping on him. So now I want you guys to see him here. A couple things you need to know about this huddle tape when we see this young man's huddle tape and I review it. A couple things you need to understand. He's playing at the 7A level, which is the highest level of football in Georgia. These are the best teams. They're very good players. And look how he treats some of these people. He's just a monster at contact. He's kind of like, I know they're dreading having to deal with this man. You're dreading having to deal with him. I'm so excited to see what comes of him in the MAC. It's going to be great. Now, the problem is when he was getting recruited, they kept listing him as a defensive end. He's now an outside linebacker, but they were listing him as like a defensive end. He's a tweener. He's not really an edge. He belongs standing like this a little bit. You can see where he walks, but the aggressiveness at contact is just so mean, guys. It's just so mean. I love everything about his game. And he looks like he's moving at a different speed from everybody else. He looks like he wants to hurt you. That's what he looks like. And I like linebackers like that. And I can only imagine lifting weights in the MAC for the last 3 years. You're ready, man. You're ready to see the field. You're finally in the starting lineup. These are the guys I would be recruiting. If I was a coach and I was on a staff somewhere, I would be identifying these talented players and not just letting the recruiting websites dictate who I go and get. This guy right here just looks like a heat-seeking missile. He looks like a problem. I'm so excited to see him on the field. I'm going to pay attention every time he's out there for every snap. That's a young man who I never forgot simply because he had a Mexican last name and we're Mexican. And we're sitting there watching the game. We're going, that ain't no Mexican, bro. He's too big. He's too tall to be Mexican. He's amazing, bro. And we don't mean to sound ignorant. We're just telling you stereotypically, my people are short, bro. I am 6 feet tall. Shout out to me. This kid's got me beat. But you just see him at the point of contact being violent, and I can appreciate it. And I'm always going to pull for somebody like this. I can't wait to see him in the MAC this year, actually in the starting lineup play. But the way he moves, the angles he takes, he just understands the game. And I'm sure he's gotten so much better over the last 3 years. And he's ready to contribute on the field. I'm ready for it, man. High flying, 100 miles an hour. And he gets through the ball with bad intentions. Is what I love from a linebacker. You don't see three-step drop backs or anything. You just see read and react. Just going out, and he gets up, and he's carrying the baby, and he's doing all that shit. Dude, he's playing against studly teams, 7A teams, and he's hurting these boys. I love it. Your friends don't know, But Rico knows, keep watching the playlist. Learn about all the players you don't know about. It ain't a game over here. Peace.